Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Southern Reads Podcast, the show where I talk about books and only books and everything book related. And today I am joined by Miss Kayla Branstetter. Kayla is a writer, educator, and TEDx speaker whose work lives at the intersection of women's health, narrative medicine, and storytelling. She is the author of the forthcoming book Don't Be an Athena, out July 20th through Ozark Press, and has been published in more than 40 journals worldwide. She also teaches literature and writing at Crowder College and is completing a doctorate in healthcare focused on women's healthcare and patient stories as evidence. So she's here. She's going to share a little bit more about her book that she has coming out. And she is just going to have a really good open conversation with us today. So, Kayla, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the podcast today. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have for us. And welcome to Southern Reads.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it as well.
So, share with my audience just a little bit more about kind of your journey as a writer and what kind of influenced you to become an author.
Oh, this is going to be like a lifetime. And I've always been writing. I always write stories. I was always writing songs and poetry. I am not a poet and I am not a songwriter. That was in the past. But I won my first writing award in first grade. So there was this organization called Young Authors. And so I won a writing award for my short story, The Beautiful Butterfly, when I was around 7 years old. And then I won another writing award over another short story about my dapple gray horse growing up named Sky. And that was in second grade. And I had my first national publication when I was in sixth grade in a national anthology. I had written a poem about my mother. And so I didn't really get any, really wasn't published again until I was a sophomore in college, where my poem, The Dollar, was published in Bordertown, our literary journal. And that was about, at the time, I was a poor college student. So I was working and I was a waitress at an Asian buffet. And so the whole poem was about doing all this work for a tip. And then I started teaching and I started working with a local magazine where I was writing features of like local tourist places to go visit. And in the process, I was going through infertility and had a miscarriage. And I'm also the daughter of a teen mom. So all of those experiences just kind of surfaced when COVID happened. And at the time, I had a 4 year old, I had a 6 month old, and I view myself as a survivor of infertility, a survivor of miscarriage, and I was open about those issues. This idea of writing a book surfaced, and I wanted this book not to be about a singular woman. I wanted a lot of plurality to this, and it is a book about multiple women from across the United States on multiple issues, and it's a diverse group of women. It's women from rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas, white women, Black women, Hispanic women, Asian, Indigenous, Jewish women, Catholic women, Christian, atheist, agnostic, women who are upper middle class, women who come from poverty, just a wide variety of women. And really showcasing the commonality that we as women have despite our differences.
And so when it came to crafting this book, what kind of made you want to treat these women stories in healthcare more as evidence rather than have them as anecdotes?
Well, so many of the women, because it's not just about, I mean, medical misogyny is littered throughout my book and just so much. And like medical gaslighting, and for centuries women have just had this expectation of being in pain, and we have been written off. And so I believe that narratives go so well with evidence-based research. And I just finished teaching a narrative medicine course to high school students, and I instructed them to write a narrative or a braided essay. And it's focusing on this issue. In the braided essay, they had to write a patient narrative from the patient's perspective. These are future healthcare workers. And in the next weave, had to be a peer reviewed article. And then the next one, again, it was back to the narrative, back to the peer review article. And then their final paragraph was a call to action on how these stories can be evidence based in addition to actual evidence based. And what that means is taking the time to fully understand women's stories or just patient stories in general, because so often women just didn't feel heard. They felt completely dismissed, and that definitely make it creates this antagonistic viewpoint of no doctor is going to hear me. So just providing that safe place to where stories can be told and people can feel visible. That's what I want for my book is I want women to feel visible and that they're being heard and providing them with enough agency to advocate for themselves.
Was there a particular story from one of your peers that really stood out to you and made you really want to kind of focus more on the women's stories?
I interviewed so many women, and they're so diverse, and so many of them had undergone significant amount of traumas and tragedies that it's difficult to like pinpoint like which woman. But there's some women that I love that they're just like a juxtaposition to each other's stories. So I have one woman, she suffered from preeclampsia. She has PCOS, which is now PMOS. And because she advocated for her health, a life-threatening situation and a doctor that was willing to listen to her saved her life. And then I have women who didn't have that luxury. They were from poverty, and they had to continuously fight and not and include the misogyny. There was one woman who her reproductive organs just were really bothering just her overall health. And it was recommended by a doctor that she probably needed a hysterectomy because all the evidence was suggesting she was probably going to end up with cancer. She went to go schedule her hysterectomy. She was married at the time, and they would not schedule it without her husband's permission, despite the fact that she needed the procedure completed to reduce her risk of cancer. And her husband goes, well, I may want kids. And that just like struck her because she needed her husband's permission to have a hysterectomy to keep her from getting cancer. So she divorces the husband and then finds a doctor who will give her a hysterectomy because she didn't want kids. And this is like a life saving procedure. So I just hope like stories like that kind of surface and people can have real conversation about, are we doing what's best for the woman, or are we doing what's best for her partner? And obviously we need to make medical decisions based off the woman.
So, how has narrative medicine shaped your thinking and your work?
It's making me more empathetic. Everybody has a story, and people can mask their traumas well. And just because has a smile on their face and seems to be pushing forward doesn't mean they're not like crumbling inside. And narrative medicine has shaped my thinking in the healthcare system. There's so much with the healthcare system I cannot fix in terms of like policy and the infrastructure of the system as a whole. But I think just creating an environment to where one, patients feel heard and understanding that stories play such a significant role in the art and science of medicine. But narrative medicine is also about recognizing physician burnout because physicians are getting burnout. They encounter life and death and a lot of traumatic situations. So narrative medicine helps doctors also create a safe place to cope with their everyday stressors, and that way we can reduce the burnout. So it just made me appreciate storytelling because I'm from a rural area in Southwest Missouri. I grew up on a farm. Like we had a dirt road, and storytelling played such a pivotal role in my family culture that it goes back and it makes me appreciate just the power of storytelling that us as humans like that connects us. Like stories and books are a natural connector of other people.
Share with me a little bit about how what the title of the book means to you. Where'd you come up with the name?
It originally started from a blog, and that blog turned into a TEDx. And I was working on my book during the blog and during the TEDx. And originally, I was going to name my book Choices because this book is about choices that women made, whether life gave them a choice or life presented them two bad choices and they had to make the best choice given to them, choices that were available to them and choices that were not available to them. But when I started reading the book Off with Her Head, and it exposed me to how history is still patriarchal and that a lot of women's narratives have either been misconstrued, including the story of Medusa, it just made me think of, okay, who are modern day Athenas? Who are the modern day Medusas? And Athena is responsible for Medusa becoming the monster that she is famous for, even in the 21st century, because Poseidon violated her in Athena's holy temple. And I'm playing on more of the Roman poet Ovid's story. And as a result of her violation, Medusa or Athena turns Medusa into a gorgon with snakes for hair, the ability to turn men into stone, and just her previous beauty as a mortal is completely gone. She's a complete antithesis of what she was. And then she lives out in exile with her sisters, where men are constantly trying to defeat her, but she can turn men into stone. And then Athena is also behind Medusa's death because she helps provide Perseus with the proper weapons to defeat Medusa. And then after Medusa is beheaded, Athena uses her as a shield. So then she kind of goes from this monster into a form of like protection and now female rage. So I use that as this extended metaphor of women tearing down women, but Poseidon's not innocent either, and how much we demonize women and turn them into monsters for the tragedies, and not necessarily with being sexually assaulted, but with fertility, with decisions as a whole. And so that's where that concept came from, is really trying to bridge the past with the present and how little we have changed on how we continue to be Athenas and judging other women's choices and turning them into monsters.
So, for people, what's the major and big takeaway that you hope people get when they read this book, and what's kind of your message to people that are in this business that maybe are going through something very similar?
So I think the takeaway of my book depends on your objective. I want most women to see themselves in this book. I want it to be a book of visibility, that we are hearing you, we acknowledge your trauma, we acknowledge your tragedy. And because there is such a diverse group of women, maybe women can see themselves in one or multiple women. And I want it to be a source of empowerment, to a sense of hope that if you're going through something similar, you can survive this and you can gain control over your own story. I have a resource page at the end of my book that connects women and survivors to agencies and groups that can help them navigate their traumas, whether that's domestic violence, sexual assault, whether that's infertility and that grief, and just a lot of different type of resources that can be available. But I also want it to be used as a like advocacy of many of these women. We can reduce their traumas and their tragedies if we just had more resources and more education. So it just, there's a lot of duality to this book. It's a book of empowerment, a book of survival, a book of hope, as much as it is a guide to advocacy and resources.
What are some other ways and platforms that you would like to kind of talk about in books? And are there any additional things that you would want to maybe talk about or have be kind of the centerfold of any topics going forward?
Like any future topics or any future projects?
Yeah, any topics that could lead to any future projects.
Well, I've kind of started two projects. I'm currently working on my doctorate. So right now I have switched from creative nonfiction into I'm in academic writing currently, and getting ready to go through IRB approval and doing research proposals. It was interesting. I was talking to my professor about my dissertation, and she goes, "How about you interview women for your research?" Like I've already done that. I started writing a book called Redneck Alchemy, which is about my experience being a high school English teacher in a rural area, and I'm about 45 pages in, so a little ways from finishing. And I'm doing more of a David Sedaris, so I'm switching to humor, but it's still connected to my overall message of needing advocacy and resources in the most vulnerable places in the country. And this year, I've had a lot of trauma this year, a lot of death in my family. My mother in law unexpectedly passed in January, and then my grandmother unexpectedly passed last month. So it's been a trying year. And so I just have this desire to write, and this desire to write of using writing as a form of healing. And I'm stuck in this nostalgic place of my childhood because my grandmother, I felt like, was this last portal to my childhood. And with her gone, it just seems like it's gone like that. And so I'm like trying to use nature and recapture just this form of healing and grief. And I had written an essay a couple weeks ago called Cardinal, and I'm writing another one called Hummingbird. And I'm just using a lot of the nature that I had grown up and remembering these stories of my childhood. So that's kind of what I'm working on, right? It's either academic or just a sense of reflection is what I'm doing right now.
Have you seen any of your books to be like, have it be like ARC reviews? And if so, what's been some of the reviews that you've received for your book?
I'll post them up right now. A lot of my books so far have received just one book because I only have one, and it'll be out July 20th. But so far the reviews, a I have a professional out of England who said, "Don't Be an Athena takes on the challenging task of representing women's experiences across generations, backgrounds, and circumstances. In the first instance, I was pulled in by Kayla's own story. The breadth of experiences that follow are impressive. But what impressed me more are the individual stories brought to life in the book. It's clear that the real care has been taken to bring difficult, sensitive stories to light without softening the hard truths that need to be said." Then I have another one who is a professor at a medical school in Pennsylvania. Branstetter's prose is powerful on its own, and then you remember these are true stories and that women featured in Don't Be an Athena endured. The narrative informs on a wide variety of topics like science, history, and rural life while staying true to the storytelling, and educates the readers about reproductive health through relatable stories while highlighting adversities that open your eyes to social realities that many women face.
What is the overall message and key takeaway that you hope that readers get when they read this book for the first time? And what's just kind of your overall message to anyone?
Human connection and empathy. A close friend of mine read it, and we don't always agree, and that's fine. I mean, the world is great when we don't always agree, but we can have civil conversations, and that's the other thing. I want people to have civil conversations about these issues, and I hope these women's stories challenge your thinking. Um, when my friend read it, she said that she didn't agree with some of the decisions that these women made, but she understood why these decisions were made, and it humanized the decisions. And that's what I hope is more of just developing a deeper understanding, empathy, compassion, and keep an open mind while you're reading, and allow yourself to have these women challenge you.
Well, Kayla, I appreciate you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the podcast today to share your story as well as to kind of share a lot about what you have personally are really tackling. I think this is such an important thing to really have discussed and really have shown and shared on here. So I appreciate you so much for taking time. For people interested in the book, I know that the book is coming out next month. Where can people go to maybe if they want to pre-order the book, and if not, where can people go to learn more information about the book, and where can they go to follow you as well?
They can follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn. I do have a Facebook, but you'll have to send a friend request. I have a public page, but it is hard keeping up with all my, it's like a full time job keeping up with all social media. At Instagram is at K Branstetter 87. And it's a lot of information about my kids, my travels, but also the book and my podcast interviews and where I will be doing book signings. LinkedIn, you can purchase the book directly through my publisher, which is Ozark Hollow Press. That's probably the most economical decision. I'm also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, and it's also available on ebook.
And I will put all this information in the description box below, so just feel free to uh, check the show notes, check the description box, so that you'll find and learn more about her books and learn more about what she has going on. Feel free to also check out me on the socials. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at southern.reads. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcasts. And feel free to also check out the podcast wherever you get your shows from. It's on all the major platforms. You can also go to my website, noahspodcast.com, and there you'll be able to find links to where the show's available, other links to where my other podcasts are. So feel free to check that out, and I'll make sure to put that down below as well. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning into today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe so you get notified of when new episodes like this come out in the future. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I will catch you in the next episode of Southern Reads.